Hello, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Aspen Ideas Festival. I'm Marina Koren. I'm a staff writer at The Atlantic, where I cover space exploration. I'm glad to be here today in conversation with Diana Trujillo, an engineer at NASA and a member of the team behind NASA's newest mission to Mars, the Perseverance rover. The rover arrived on the surface of Mars in February with a very exciting task: to look for signs of ancient fossilized life in the soil. So I'm very excited to talk to Diana about the mission and her experience at NASA. So hi, Diana, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Where are you beaming in from today?
So I am in California. I am in Pasadena, where NASA JPL is located, and yeah.
Do you wish you were on Mars?
Of course, I wish I were on Mars, but it's kind of interesting that you asked me that question because we see pictures of Mars every day, and at some point you can tell the difference in between are you on Mars yourself because you're seeing it just as the rover is seeing it, and at the same time you're tracking with the time that is happening on Mars or the execution of what the rover is doing. So it's kind of you kind of have two watches, whatever is happening on Mars and whatever is happening on Earth for your normal life.
Yeah, and kind of check the weather forecasts for both planets a little bit.
You kind of do actually, because then you have to figure out if you have problems with calm or if you're going to have problems with, any dust devil storms that might happen or might come by that you need to worry about the optics. So yeah, so we certainly also think about weather on Mars.
So you led the team that developed the Perseverance rover's robotic arm, and this is an arm that's literally doing some heavy lifting, drilling into soil, collecting soil for sample tubes for future missions to come by and bring back home, looking around for trying to answer this very big question. How do you approach building a piece of hardware as complex as that?
So I have done several jobs. Thankfully, I feel like I'm very blessed with the Perseverance mission, and the same way with Curiosity. With the Perseverance mission, I was deputy phase lead for the robotic arm science, which what that means, which is related to your question, is really to come up with the hardware comes in, the software comes in, and now the job of my team was to ensure that when the hardware comes in and the software is now installed, and you of course have electrically integrated everything, that the thing that you have in front of it is doing the thing that you promised you were going to do. So to your question as to how do we approach that, is quite interesting, and I really enjoy it because you need to kind of transport yourself into the future and say, okay, when we are on Sol, meaning the day off on Mars, so day Sol the same. So when you are on Sol 30 and we want to use the robotic arm, how will we use it? I will use it this way, that way, and the other. And then now look back and say, okay, given where I am now and the pieces that are still coming slowly, how do we actually test this piece of hardware? How do we demonstrate that it's doing the right thing? And how do we convince ourselves that although we're testing it on Earth, that the change in temperature on Mars, the change on gravity on Mars, the additional things that happen on the atmosphere and on the terrain where you are not going to give us false positives that it work on Earth, but it might not work on Mars. So you're kind of doubling between two planets, understanding the differences, recognizing your own limitations, and then figuring out or try to extrapolate how we will be end up using it on the surface eventually.
And then what is that experience like once the rover is on Mars? What does your average day look like once you're actually doing the thing that you set out to do?
It's quite interesting and very, for me, very exciting because I like, high pressure, high gain situations where, you're kind of like putting everything out there, hoping that it's going to work, but you really don't know until you actually try it. And so it's a very interesting and exciting experience to be able to do a lot of firsts. First time we install, first time we touch the surface, first time we actually collect the sample, first time we take that image, and see that those first times, the similarities of how those first times actually trace back to a year and a half ago. We saw that exact same behavior on the surface on Earth. Now we're seeing it on Mars. So it's good and bad things, right? Good things because you're like, yes, we got it right. Bad because it's like, way we did not think about that. And exciting because now it's like, well, on the fly, tactically turn it around in the next 24 hours and respond to the thing that you just saw happen that you didn't actually foresee happening. So you're playing this catch up game constantly in where you kind of have to be very flexible and receptive to a lot of information that you knew that you might have missed, information that you knew that happened exactly, and information that you never accounted for. And now you need to triage it and make it work.
And do you think that Perseverance is going to find compelling evidence of something in the surface on its time there, and we don't have to wait for those samples to come back to Earth however many years down the road?
Yeah, so Perseverance objective is to find if at some point on the surface of Mars in the past there was life. We're not, of course, looking for life like you and I. We're looking for life, microbial life that happened in the past. And so when you ask me, do I think that we're going to find it? I mean, that's the whole thing. Why we exist on the surface of Mars right now with the Perseverance mission to find it. So are we doing everything that we can? Absolutely, yes. Now, will we be able to do all the experiments that we need to the sample that we're going to find? The answer is no, because we only have 7 instruments that we can take. The whole point is to actually identify it, convince ourselves that it is the right spot, take the sample, which is as big as a pencil. So we have several sample tubes, all of them as big as a pencil, and then capture and say, okay, next mission, Mars sample return, come pick it up because we know we found it. Now is Earth, do all the experiments that you think you can do, because I'm sure that there's a million experiments that people will want to do on it.
So you've had a very interesting journey to this point in your career and your career at NASA. And this is a story that you've told often. You grew up in Colombia, you moved to the United States when you were only 17, learned English. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what led you then to dive into aerospace engineering and decide that you wanted to do that?
Sure. So when I came to the US, I knew very little English, almost nothing, and then had very little money on my pocket. And I think that, I went from a situation where it was very much survival mode. What am I going to do today? Where am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? Type of situation, to a situation where I realized that education, like, a lot of our parents tells us that, right? It's like, hey, education is the gateway to your future, and you still manage to sometimes doubt that. In my case, it's not that I was doubting the fact that it was education. It was the fact that education is expensive. And if I was going to go pay for my education, I needed to go figure out how I was going to support it financially. But once I actually got into my track of learning English, and then on my track to actually realize that I could do it, that I could manage all the balls that I was just juggling with the fact that it was work and school and homework and more work to pay for it all. At that point, I just thought, okay, well, I have a possibility of going from survival mode to actually choosing. And then once I got into the position where I could choose, now the question was, choose what? And how, and what impact do you want to do in history, really, or in humanity in general? And I think I took it that far because I saw all the women in my family where they had to put to the side what they wanted to do. A lot of the cases because of a lack of financial freedom, because they were tied to their significant other who was the provider, and not necessarily because they weren't able to actually do it themselves. It's because the way that it was structured was, he is the one, in this case, he, for the husbands of my grandpa, then my grandma, my great grandma, and my mom are the ones providing, what you can do, and also the ones saying you can't do that. So in my case, it was just the fact that I thought, well, I feel like I need to aim high for them, aim high on honor of what they have done, and at the same time aim high, because if I don't break the cycle in my own end, if I don't think that I can do a little bit more, then I'm not really paying forward what they did for me. But so anyways, for me then after that, it was just more of a learning about the fact that space is always a place, or the sky really is always a place where you look at up at the sky, you look at the stars, and you think everything just works great. Like nobody's fighting, nobody's complaining, nobody's like trying to figure out who's better than the other one. It's not about that. And there's giant planets, right? And so if all of that works, how does it work? Because clearly we don't know. And that's where it started for me. That's where it hooked me up into space.
And so, for Perseverance's arrival on Mars, you hosted a Spanish language live commentary for NASA. I'm wondering what advice you would give to any future aerospace engineers who might have been watching that.
Oh, that I love your question. So I did that for you. Will be my 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 comment to them. I did that for you because, and I don't know if it was something that was going to help you or not, but I put myself on their shoes. I didn't have the opportunity of somebody to tell me early in my life, you can do this. Not only you can do this, is you can dream of it. Allow yourself to dream of going to space. Allow yourself to go to explore and learn more. My idea was three things, actually. One of them was I wanted to set that environment by having those moments that I didn't have, and hopefully enabling those for the next generation, and really to the current generation that still wants to do it, that didn't do it. They still have the time, right? And so it was the moment of, my abuela, like I wanted my grandma, who had a very strong presence on my life, to come in and be like, mija, pay attention. And I had that scene of like me looking up, and she's like, mira, she can do it. Why are you not doing that? And it's just like, what? Yes, let me look. And that moment, right, where you have somebody else in your family that is like, you can do it. And it just takes 1 second for somebody that is in your family to tell you that, and for your perspective to change. I also wanted my parents, my mom, my dad, to come in to me and like come and say, hey, did you watch that? Are you watching? Even if it was like, just pay attention, or just read, or look at all the other people that are on the screen. You can be one of them, and help me see that if they thought that I could, I certainly should consider it. And then the last thing for me was to have that opportunity to see somebody else and be like, wow, like they're doing that. I want that one. I want to do that job, or that job, or that job, or the person that's talking, or the person that's sitting on the back. And, you inevitably make those connections to the person, even from like her hair is long, or she's a girl, or like she speaks Spanish, like all of those connections, those humans connections that we make when we see somebody else doing the thing that we want to do, but sometimes we don't dare to do it. I wanted just to at least make a little crack on that ceiling and say that it is out there and it's your choice.
That's really wonderful. I'd like to end with a question about robotic exploration of Mars in general, whether that's Perseverance, Curiosity, Ingenuity, which is the cutest little helicopter on Mars ever. Because these machines are kind of like extensions of ourselves. They're extensions of the people that deploy them. And in the grandest sense, they're extensions of humankind. And with you leading the team behind the robotic arm, what does it mean for you to kind of be able to reach out and do the exploring of Mars in that way?
I love your question, and I love the fact that you bring ingenuity and deployment, because I don't know if you knew this, but I happen to have been the flight director on the day that we deploy Ingenuity on the surface of Mars. So I can tell you exactly what it means, that exact thing. Totally stressful, right? Like you walk in and you're about to do that thing that you have prepared for many, 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 many months and years to make it happen. You have one shot, and you're not doing it for you. You're not doing it for the team that is in front of you. You're doing it for planet Earth. And planet Earth is actually doing it, and it's not even you. You're not even on the picture, right? And so it is a tremendous honor to be the person that gets to be on that room where you evaluate and make the right decisions, hopefully the right decisions. Thankfully, it went really well. When you make the right calls across all that timeline at the right instances, because there's a lot at stake. If we don't deploy it correctly, it's going to break. If we do the autonomous driving that we were going to do, we're going to drag it. If it doesn't cut the power that we had, then it's going to not survive overnight. Like lots of things, right? And so I just feel like, I have the biggest honor, which is to show up to work and know that I'm not only doing a good job, that it is that I must do a good job, that I must do it with excellence and integrity, because I am representing not me. I am representing what humanity can actually do when we push the envelope and remind us really that when we do it well, it reminds us that we together can do a lot, right? In the middle of the pandemic, everything that we did, I hope that it reminded people that nothing can really stop us if we really work together and we put everything to the side that is personal and instead focus on a bigger goal than just me.
Okay, I think that's a really great note to end on. Diana, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.